Final segment of ATL Day Ones. I'm Jarvis. That's Tenitra. We are rocking with you on a good old Monday. Good Mondays around here. No bad Mondays on this show because we like to keep it positive around these parts of T. I think that the one thing that we always enjoy is doing the For the Culture segment. But before we get into it, because like we got some good news for you, some good things, a lot of advocating for HBCU players being drafted because none got
Yes.
drafted in 2021, which should
Yeah.
not be the case. We're gonna get into all that, but first
Mhm.
we gotta tell you about Locked On Sports Atlanta. We want to tell you how to find it. Go to the YouTube search box, type in Locked On Sports Atlanta. It's free. It's free. It's free. It's free. It's free. It's free. And you can always check us out on all of our audio platforms, and you can download wherever you get your podcast. You can check us out there, and we want to say appreciate you for following along with us over the weekend because
Yes.
we had a really good time. Doing some draft NFL draft stuff, and we've been talking about the draft here throughout the entire show, and we're gonna wrap this thing up with HBCU players.
Yes.
They or four of them were drafted, and I'm gonna go ahead and give those guys their names, give them their
Mhm.
flowers right here. James Houston
Yes.
was drafted by the Detroit Lions. We're gonna come back
Mhm.
to that. Why that's significant is very significant, right? In Fayetteville State, Joshua Williams was drafted by the Kansas City Chiefs. South Carolina State, Jacoby Durant was drafted by the LA Rams. He's a
Mhm.
guy that balled out in the Celebration Bowl. I know you were covering that game, T. You
Yes.
were on the sidelines for that. So definitely want to get your thoughts on him. And Jatari Carter was drafted by the Chicago Bears. And Lord knows they need offensive linemen. And I got a chance to get my eyes on Jatari down in the Senior Bowl. So, yeah,
Yes.
we'll definitely get into all that. But first, I think the most
Mhm.
significant thing out of all of this is that Brad Holmes, who's an African American,
Mhm.
is the general manager for the Detroit Lions. And he talked about how this was significant
Mhm.
because he was even getting stuff from his mom. His mom was like, "Hey, why don't you draft HBCU players?" And the
Right.
thing that I really liked about how he responded to that, because you
Mhm.
can't get all hard on mom now. He's
Right.
like, "Yeah, mom, we want to draft HBCU players, but we don't want to just draft them just to draft them.
Right.
Like, ain't no tokens being want to be passed out right here. Nobody wants to be a token draft pick. Nobody wants to be that,
Exactly.
right? And but the thing that was significant was that he said that we want those guys got to be worth drafting too on the
Mhm.
other side. So I love that how he put it like that because there we're not asking to be drafted. We want to
Right.
be drafted if we're worthy. You know what I mean? Like,
Sure thing.
and the fact that the four guys were drafted this year, they were
Mhm.
worthy. They were worthy
Yes.
of being
Yes.
drafted, and they're going to have an opportunity to make the teams that they were drafted by. So,
Mhm.
and I think that, like you mentioned, going into before we can going into break, um, it's important to have a guy though that looks like them or
Yeah.
has a seat at the table. Because I think that's just as important as being good enough.
Yes, agreed. Anytime we can have a seat at the table in a decision-making capacity, and
Right.
I was having this conversation with someone this morning. Diversity is not just about the way you look in terms of gender or
Mm-hmm.
race. It is also about diversity of thought and experience. And no question, with Brad Holmes being an HBCU grad, someone who's kind of come up the ranks, and not just an HBCU grad at any old HBCU, but one of the football powerhouses, North Carolina A&T,
A&T,
in Black
yes.
college football for the better part of the last decade, if not. And then he goes to a burgeoning powerhouse in Jackson State and says, "Hey, I like this James Houston the fourth. He's got some potential." I saw it firsthand and was like, he's scary good. This
Yes.
guy I expect to see, along with the Kobe Grant, had an opportunity to see him as well. Said, "Yeah, I think we might see them on Sunday." And like you said, you also had an opportunity to check out one of the four players at the Senior Bowl and said, "Wow, there's something." So again, not asking for a seat at the table just because we're owed a seat at the table, but rather to say, "Hey, if you give us one, we'll show you why it's good for us to have a seat at the table." So, yes, I love what Brad Holmes said. I love his approach. And I think that as this pays dividends, then we'll go back to having, to your point, not the conversation from 2021 with the head scratcher of, and why don't we have an HBCU draft pick, to the conversations previously when we talk about a Tariq Cohen and the amazing things he was doing as a running back with the Chicago Bears, or Darius Leonard out here being the highest
The
paid.
best linebacker in the league. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Argue
That's,
against that.
yeah. There you go. And just playing lights out ball for the Colts. That's the conversation that I believe these four gentlemen could potentially get us back to.
You know what? And I'm all for it, right? Because like you said, I played at HBCU.
Yes.
For those who don't know, at
Yes.
the Albany State University. So I'm going ahead and represent today.
Yes,
I
see
got
that jersey
to.
in the background?
Yeah,
That's it.
exactly. Like it's
just-
real. That's not something I purchased. That's something I earned. So yeah, I understand the plight of trying to make it to the NFL. Coming out in the HBCU, it's hard. It's super hard. We always joked when my teammates and I, and how like, okay, either you got to have ridiculous, unbelievable stats, or you got to be blazing in the 40. Like you have to run a 4.2. Like I don't care what position you play. If you're offensive lineman, you got to run a 4.2. Like somehow something has to happen in order for those guys to be like, oh, let's go down here and see what's going on. Like you have to be amazing in order to just get a look or a conversation. Because I've talked to. I can count on one hand how many scouts I talked to coming out. You know what I'm saying? So I think that it just makes my heart happy to see guys getting drafted, multiple guys being drafted, and general managers having conversations about guys being drafted and how they can be drafted and continue to be drafted. So, and I think I got to give a quick kudos before we get out of here to Deion Sanders. He is speaking up and speaking out and having a platform to speak out, and I absolutely love that. And you can say what you want about Prime, but Prime is doing his thing, and I love what he's doing down there. And I think he can take some kudos too for these guys getting the opportunity to go into the NFL.
Exactly. And I promise I will only make two references to the Steelers before we leave out. Okay. One reference is shout out to the Steeler Nation for getting George Pickens to become a part of Dog Nation. I know that Jarvis had him on his mock draft for the Falcons, but I do think that he landed in an amazing spot there with the Steelers. I believe that's going to pay dividends for him. But the reason I also bring up the Steelers organization is because when you have a mindset like Brad Holmes, then the Lions franchise will be a place that HBCU players, any players, particularly HBCU players, feel like they'll be set up to succeed. And it just made me think. And so I was over there Googling because I couldn't remember his name, but it reminded me of the legendary scout Bill Nunn, who was really the architect for the Steelers back in the day, going and getting all of those HBCU players like Mr. Mel Blount, who is, a friend to the family or whatever. And it made me think about Brad Holmes, those scouts, those GMs, those could be the modern day versions of a Bill Nunn who really reset the table to let those HBCU athletes know that if you bring the game, we will find you and we will put you in position to succeed. Just like at ATL Day Ones, we put you guys in a position to succeed because we always bring the knowledge. We bring it in a way that you guys can appreciate and enjoy and be entertained by the delivery. So come back tomorrow. We'll have more for you guys, hopefully being able to break down a Braves win. Might even have a little commentary for you about how the pre-draft workouts went for the Hawks. They had 6 guys out there today getting ready for the draft, which is about a month and a half away. And of course, if there is any other news about the Falcons as they look at their undrafted free agents and start looking at their roster and how they want to make shifts, you'll get that information and get that breakdown right here at ATL Day Ones. We'll see you tomorrow.